I'm Andor Palau, and this is SEO in 2023.
Andor, what is your number one SEO tip for 2023?
Yeah, my number one tip actually is accuracy. And I know that may sound a little bit weird because, it's not talking about the next shiny object. It's not talking about any kind of tactics. It's more talking about actually a needed habit. So, probably all SEO consultants out there or people in the agencies can feel about that, because when you do a lot of analysis and when you do a lot of audits, for example, you see a lot of, let me say, self-made issues, so which shouldn't be there in first place. And when we talk about accuracy, we can talk about choosing the right keywords for the right landing pages so that your targeting is better, so that the landing page fits more the user intent. We could talk about internal linking. Don't work on or don't create broken links. Don't create broken URLs. Use the right anchor texts. We could talk about structured data, how is it implemented, which information are needed, and so on. So, and actually all problems in SEO, and when you see websites which are dealing with performance issues for a shorter time or for a longer time, it often comes down to the fact that there's not one smoking gun. There's a collection of things going wrong, actually. And it comes to a point where, all this comes together. And this is why I think that, working on details and being accurate in your processes and so on is actually important, because Google gets more and more sophisticated. Search gets more and more sophisticated. There are less room for errors, errors. And that's why I think we need to get, more aware of the fact that it's not a game anymore, and we need to really work precisely on things. Yeah, that's why I think that's important in 2023.
You mentioned many different examples there of areas that you could be more accurate in. I think the three areas that you highlighted that jumped out at me was internal linking, landing page targeting, and structured data. So perhaps we could dive into those areas in a little bit more detail and explore common inaccurate issues that some SEOs have, and what kind of impact that actually has on SEO. So maybe starting off with internal linking. What inaccuracies are you talking about there?
Yeah. So internal linking actually is a very good topic, because this is something this is totally in your hands, right? So you can influence it by 100% what you're doing there, actually. So it starts with using the right anchor texts, for example. We know the anchor text is passing signals, and as better the anchor text is, the better the signals are. And so check actually which anchor texts are you using. Are you using non-descriptive anchor texts for important keywords or for important landing pages? And try to improve the situation there, for example. So
sorry, just to dive into specific anchor text, are you a fan of using keyword-rich anchor text all the time?
Yeah, so in internal linking, there's nothing like a penalty for exact match anchor texts. So, so we try actually to really use the anchor text which is descriptive, and therefore actually it makes sense to have an eye on that. And the other thing is that we try to use one specific anchor text or a collection of anchor texts when we talk about topic optimization for landing page, and don't use the same anchor texts maybe for 20 different pages. This is also not actually what we want to have in SEO. So this is also accuracy, simply checking the anchor text, for example, the list of anchor texts. So you can easily, if you, whatever crawler you're using, you can simply sort the anchor texts and see if there are different target pages, and then you go through that, for example. We can also talk about broken links or broken landing pages. If you have a massive site, several 100,000 of pages, and you have systems where URLs are creating, are you sure that you are not creating, for example, URLs with no items actually? When we talk about shops or marketplaces or classifiers, so there are some mechanisms And sometimes URLs are generated and internally linked, which are actually totally redundant. So, and all these kinds of stuff, you can actually provide when you or you can actually check before.
So you mentioned landing page targeting there as well. If you've got 2 or 3 pages that could potentially rank for a target keyword phrase, how do you decide which page should be your target page?
Well, I mean, there are several things to check. I think, which is the one which is performing the best maybe right now. Maybe which one has the most external links, which is maybe driving the most or the best conversions right now. So I think I would look at a collection of signals actually. And when I think, okay, there's no transformation or transformer actually, all landing pages are really targeting the same intent, the same group of keywords, then you have to choose one and go with that. So and combine the other ones. It's as simple as that, I think.
And one of the other areas that you mentioned was structured data. So what are some common mistakes that are done with structured data?
Well, when you look at the documentations, there are, of course, some expectations from Google, how some informations are provided, or that you maybe not misuse actually some structured data for other things. And when you want to implement something, you really need to check actually the implementation documentation, if you're using it right. So I just received actually from someone else information about a manual action based on a misuse of structured data in job postings. So job postings, for example, is one area where a lot of things are strictly ruled by Google. So and I think it's valid to really check the documentations and have an eye on that. And see that you also use the right URLs for the structured data. Or when we talk about FAQs, for example, sometimes these folding elements, FAQ elements, are automatically combined with structured data, but you actually only allowed to use the FAQ data once at a page. But if you use these elements 3 times on your page, you have 3 times the structured data, and Google will show you an error. So things like that actually is very common when we talk about structured data and accuracy.
If an SEO was working for an organization with a big website, maybe over 1 million pages, what would be the process that you followed to identify which internal links weren't optimized, weren't accurate in terms of the text that you used?
Well, I think, again, you have these lists during the crawls, and then you can actually go through that. I mean, what is the main target.
Any particular favored software for crawls?
So I'm actually ambassador for OnCrawl. So sorry. So I'm using that, but you mean with XPath and other things, you can easily get the data from all crawls. So if it is Screaming Frog's sidebar or whatever it is, so actually all crawlers should be able to do that in some parts. And then actually, as said, you can easily go through the lists.
Okay, so that's obviously what you do in terms of identifying phraseology, wording within internal links there as well. Another phrase that you have used is signal inheritance. What do you mean by accurate signal inheritance? Yeah,
so when we talk about internal linking, it was actually matched to that. Then we know internal linking has three tasks actually. The first task is accessibility. The second one is prioritization, and the third one is actually signal inheritance. So, and when we talk about signal inheritance, we again mostly talk about anchor text, for example. So use the descriptive anchor texts. Make sure that you have a clear lines of signals and so on. So that's actually related to that.
Okay, superb. Is there a process that SEOs can follow to ensure that they're more accurate in the future?
Well, I'm a huge fan of checklists, actually, and to give them over to a process. So I think that making checklists for mostly everything you're doing is very important. I mean, we often talk about checklists when we talk about migrations, but actually depending on the team setup, how many people are in your team, it is important, I think, to have these kind of checklists and processes, because errors often happens when knowledge is not passed, to the next person rightly or so. So you can catch up all that by having really a good structure, good process, a good checklist. So this is something I would spend definitely some time on. As bigger the team, I think as more important it is. But it is in some ways also a mindset. So you really need to be again and again and again willing to maybe make the next check. If you have tickets, something was developed or so, or change should go live. So then there should be a process, there should be a checklist that at least 2 people are checking maybe the changes. There should be a process that it is clear that there are no rollouts on a Friday, and all these kinds of stuff in the end can help that accuracy is increasing on a site.
And can you give some kind of flavor of the impact that having more accurate internal linking can have? For instance, if you've got 100 internal links pointing to a page and 50 of them aren't optimized in terms of the keyword phrase. They might just say home, or they might just say some text that isn't optimized at all. If you suddenly optimize all of those internal links for your target phrase, what kind of impact, if any, would that actually have on rankings?
So I think we need maybe to differentiate between these kind of non-descriptive anchor text maybe, but also what actually happens quite more often is that anchor text with different meanings are used, or when we see that actually this is kind of another query. So the keyword or the anchor text does not match the intent of the page. It's actually when you Google it, it's actually a different query. So this is actually, I think, a bigger problem than these very generic home or click here links. However, in the end, if you are totally happy with the performance of that URL, feel free to don't change anything. But if you want to go through every possible optimization, then I would definitely check again the anchor text. So it is, as said at the very beginning, often the fact that it's not the one thing. Yeah, when it happens with one URL out of 100 URLs, you probably will not see that big of an impact. So, but when you're doing that with several thousand URLs on your domain, then this may be really impact in the end your rankings.
So you've shared what SEO should be doing in 2023. Now let's talk about what SEO shouldn't be doing. So what's something that's seductive in terms of time, but ultimately counterproductive? What's something that SEO shouldn't be doing in 2023?
Good question. Let me think a little bit. So actually, one thing I have in mind would be that don't lose your focus. I'm SEO myself for more than a decade, and I know we all love to work on several things, and they are always coming. The next thing you want to check, the next thing you want to, maybe to improve or so. Although you have already that kind of a list. So, and I do like to focus more on 3-4 things, and I'm working on that for a longer time to make sure that I really got an improvement there and go to the end. Then starting with 100 things and don't get finished anything. So choose maybe the 2-3 top topics for a year or for a quarter or whatever your time frame is, and work on that. But work on that with a focus. That's probably one thing. The other one I have in mind is test. So what you shouldn't do is you should not testing. So be aware of the fact that sometimes it's enough to overanalyze. You simply have to test things, put it online and see what happens. And if there's if your assumption wasn't right, then you probably can roll back or so. But sometimes we tend to overanalyze and don't act. And we need to, I think SEO is still, getting things online, getting things changed, and then see what happens. So, and that's why I think this is also important for me still in 2023. And from the company side, actually, I would add something. And this is, what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't underestimate the value of SEO. You should maybe invest more in that, because what I often see is there are companies, they are hiring SEOs. Well, very, very good, but then they get just one tool, and then they are expected to do, proper SEO. We all know that, having one tool for SEO is probably not enough. You don't hire someone who's repairing your car and give him one tool. And so I think for companies, they need to have the awareness that, SEO means a lot more. It means, having a budget for research and development, having a budget to, really hire the right people, having the budget for the right tools, and give them also the freedom a little bit to test things, because that's I think so important.
Andor Palau is an international SEO consultant, and you can find him over at andorpalau.com. Andor, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2023.
Thanks for having me.
Get your copy of SEO in 2023, the book, over at SEOin2023.com.